So this is the future. People agree. It just now comes down to tech, consensus protocol, all the governance, and then obviously network effect, and if people use it. And that's maybe what I'm calling them the layer one wars right now. I mean, I've had the privilege of sitting down with people like you that have been working hard for years and years, creating these new, proof of stake mechanisms that can speed things up dramatically. And it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. You think there will be a handful of winners for market share?
Yeah, I think it's going to consolidate a lot. I don't think it's going to be a big, multi-chain world where there's a chain for everything. And sometimes I can say like, can your chain be better for X or Y? The technology for making a good chain is kind of the same regardless of what vertical you're trying to go after. The technology, if you want to make a chain that focuses on, I don't know, NFTs about movies, or if you want to make a chain that focuses on DeFi or what have you, it's roughly the technical choices you're going to have to make are going to be very similar. So I don't think there's going to be differentiation. I don't think that differentiation in terms of technology necessarily enable different use cases.
Okay.
By and large, a little bit. I think governance, for example, helps with longevity, and longevity helps with certain use cases like collectibles. And I also think different applications may care about different points on the decentralization and speed trade-off, for example. But by and large, I don't think that's very, very strong. It doesn't mean that you don't get network effect. So, you can still get network effect in some verticals just by preferential attachment. So, just because there's more finance in New York and there's more tech in San Francisco, and that has nothing to do with, the weather being more appropriate for tech and, being better to be on an island for doing finance. It's just like a bunch of people started doing it there and it stays there because it was convenient to be there. Right. And one thing which doesn't work very well is bridges between blockchains. Sure, there's some solutions, but it's difficult to make them work. And there's fundamental reasons why you lose security when you try to create bridges between chains. But that in itself makes it interesting because it's so difficult to make those bridges, you can actually have this preferential attachment happening. You can actually have not geographic network effect in the sense of like Earth geography, but in the sense of like blockchain geography. You're like, every blockchain is a little bit like an island. And so on these islands, you can build this effect. So I don't think it's going to be winner take 100%. Right. But definitely there's going to be a lot of consolidation amongst the different L1s.
And there's not going to be some beautiful world in the future where everything goes cross-chain, seamlessly and costlessly. You don't think that's practical. So it means less than 10, maybe less than 5 blockchains do 90+% of the volume.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. And I mean, that may be the case today.
Yeah.
And the thing that I don't get is that people either fall into two camps. Mostly. They either think that, it's going to be winner take all and my chain is going to take everything and everyone else is a scammer and a horrible person and they should, and they should, all go to hell. And there's another position which is kumbaya, is going to be a multi-chain world, no one is competing against anyone, we're all friends and we're all going to all work together. And I don't believe either of this position is right. I think it's going to get very, very competitive. But you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be an asshole about it. Just because you think we're competing with someone doesn't mean you need to be relentlessly shitting on them. And it seems like a natural position to me, but it's oddly rare.
And I'm glad you bring this up because I talk all the time about the transition from Web 2.0 to 3.0, and it's the future, and everyone's going to cooperate, and everything's going to be open source. Whereas Web 2.0, there was big dominant companies grabbing huge chunks of market share, leaders, with big personalities that would take us in directions. And then Web 3.0, all of a sudden, everything's shared. And I think we're going to be somewhere in between for a little while. I don't know if everything's going to be, like you said, open source and non-competitive and all these DAOs. I don't know. I think we're going to get some bumpy transition or some future that isn't the kumbaya we think it will be. But hopefully not the Web 2.0 version that we know it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot. I'm friendly with a lot of founders from other L1s. I really enjoy talking to them, and I do think we're competing. I think we're competing for the same audience, for the same applications, for all of that. Doesn't mean we can doesn't mean we can't share ideas or work together. I guess it's a little unlike finance, where somehow like secrecy is so important, because all the work is done in the open and in open source. I would say secrecy is less important, especially in terms of like design and development, and so people are much more willing to share.
Yeah, it's slightly different. Like you said, you wouldn't see the hedge fund heads in the back of the day having probably conversations or lunch. But you do see the L ones a little bit more. But again, at the end of the day, you're still competing.
But it's pragmatic because, first of all, they have these very large teams. They have this very, and then, the code is going to be run by all these computers. It has to be open source, otherwise it's not going to be decentralized. So, because it's going to be out there anyway, you might as well try to trade ideas.
Yeah.